Okay, very good afternoon to all of you. Today we are going to start with this poem, a photograph by Shirley Toulson. And in this poem, if you've gone through it, if you have just read it once, can anyone just tell me what this poem is about? What this poem is all about? Yes.
The poet is talking
Just a minute. Just a minute.
The poet,
Huh.
the poet is talking about her mother. That when her mother went to the vacations with her two cousins on a sea holiday, and she is missing her mother and remembering her by the photo. And the poem is
This is a yeah. Anybody else from the class? If you've gone through the poem, yes, Joy, sing, Joy. Yes.
And in this he was on a vacation, and in this basically we can infer that anything is not permanent.
Very good.
Anything is not permanent, and if there is a bad phase in your life, then there will be a happy phase in your life also.
Yes. So here the poet is talking about a particular photograph, and as Joy had just elaborated, that the entire poem revolves around the photograph only, and that photograph is of the poet's mother, and that photograph was clicked when the mother was around 12 years of age, and later on in your life. And what is why do you have photographs in your life? Can anyone just tell me? To memories, so that when you cherish them, when you later on you look at them, you remember them with a lot of fondness. So whenever the mother would look at that photograph, she would feel very happy, feel very pleased. And they capture, what do the photographs do? They capture a particular moment in time, and the emotions, and also the emotions that we feel at that particular moment. Later on, when you look at that photograph, you relive all those emotions and all those feelings. Okay, so I'm going to just read out this poem, and then we will discuss it line by line. So the poet is Shirley Toulson. Tomorrow you just read about this poetess a little bit, and we'll discuss about the poetess also when you come. पढ़ के आना थोड़ा शर्ली टूल्सन के बारे में, ठीक है? So it says, the cardboard shows me how it was when the two girl cousins went paddling, each one holding one of my mother's hands, and she, the big girl, some 12 years or so. All three stood still to smile through their hair at the uncle with the camera. A sweet face, my mother's, that was before I was born. And the sea, which appears to have changed less, washed their terribly transient feet. Some 20-30 years later, she'd laugh at the snapshot. See, Betty and Dolly, she'd say, and look how they dressed us for the beach. The sea holiday was her past, mine is her laughter. Both wry with the labored ease of loss. Now she's been dead nearly as many years as that girl lived. And of this circumstance, there is nothing to say at all. It's silence, silences. Okay, so the very first word is the cardboard. The photograph is actually mounted on a cardboard. What is a cardboard? A thick piece of, it's a kind of a frame, and it is mounted on a frame, so it was fixed on the cardboard. And she says, the poetess says, the cardboard shows me how it was. What was?
How it was
Back then, when the photograph was, how it was when that photograph was clicked. कैसा था उस टाइम पे जब वो photograph खींची गई थी, ठीक है? How it was when the two girl cousins went paddling. The cousins along with the poetess's mother, they went paddling. This person went troubling me a lot. Time and again I'm denying entry. बार बार आई जा रहा है. So they went paddling, and what do you understand by paddling? Paddling क्या होता है बेटा? No. On a beach. Yes. Yes. Each one holding one of my mother's hands. What were they doing? They were holding the hands of the poetess's mother. And because she was the eldest of them all. You know, they were moving their feet in water. Paddling is or while swimming, where you are moving your feet in water. So they were holding one of my mother's hands, and she the big girl. And out of, why do you hold the elders, any elders hands? Why do you do that? Yes,
You don't use direction where you have
to get a direction, and also to have a sense of security. On a beach, you might, there were little girls, and they, might have felt a little bit scared, and so they were holding on to the mother's hands on both the sides. दोनों दोनों तरफ से हाथ पकड़े हुए. ठीक है, समझ आ गया विशाल? आ रहा है ना? ठीक है. Some, and she the big girl. Who is she here? The mother. Who is mother? She the big girl, and how old was she? How big was she? Some 12 years of age. But she was the eldest one out of those three. How many girls were there in total? Three girls. The mother was the biggest one, the eldest one. She was in the center. The other two cousins were holding her hands from both the sides. Raman, got it? Yes? All three stood still to smile through their hair. They were smiling through their hair. What do you understand by this expression, to smile through one's hair? Raise your hand. Yes, Akriti? Yes, they were smiling through their hair. Means the hair were all, they were scattered or strewn across their face, because maybe the breeze, because of the sea breeze, because of the breeze. There was air, there was wind, or maybe it was a windy day. So their hair was scattered all over their face, and through their hair they were smiling. And what were they smiling at? At the uncle. And what was the uncle doing? He was the one who was clicking the photograph. The uncle was there. He put on a mask. No, the uncle was there, and he was clicking the photograph, and the girls were right in front of them and posing for the photograph. Okay, a sweet face, my mother's. That was before I was born. Now, my mother had a very sweet face. And why would she say that she had a sweet face? Because she was very young, and she was very, there was innocence that reflected upon her face. Again, what is innocence? Yes. Kunal, what is innocence? What do you mean by innocence? Masumiyat. So, and because her mother had a, sit down Kunal, her mother had a very sweet face, and that was before I was born. At that point of time when the photograph was clicked, when they had gone for that sea holiday, the mother was only 12 years old. So the poetess was not there. And the sea. Now here that important point is coming on, where we talked about the transience of human life and the permanence of nature. What do you understand by transience? What is something? What? Temporary. Something which is temporary, and something which is everlasting is eternal. What is eternal and what is transient? Yes. What is eternal? And can you please pick that chalk up? Yes. What is eternal and what is transient? Bolo. हाँ. Bolo. Sahib Veer. Transient. What is this? क्या होता है? Sahib Veer. We've got this word. We've got the meaning also. अभी बताओ जल्दी. Something which is temporary. Something which doesn't last for long. And what is perennial? Perennial. Something which is permanent or eternal or everlasting. So what is perennial? I'll write it down on the board. P-E-R-E. This is another word for something which is eternal. Perennial. So these are two opposite words, transient and perennial. Something which is eternal, something which is everlasting. And what is everlasting? Nature. So that is why, sit down Sahib. So that is why the poet says that the sea which appears to have changed less, the sea has not changed much. But what has changed? What has changed? Her mother. We still don't know about that. That would come in the next stanza. Okay? The sea which appears to have changed less, it washed their terribly transient feet. What do you mean by this? Terribly transient feet.
They kept
Yes, and how can feet be short-lived or temporary? How can feet be short-lived or let me just share this poem because maybe some of the students have not still bought the books. So it's just a one-page poem. So I've just clicked its photograph, a photograph of the photograph. Okay, so this is it. Okay, it was the terribly transient feat. Not terribly means extremely, बहुत ज़्यादा, and transient again something which is temporary. And how can feet be transient? Because they're going to soon outgrow their size. ठीक है, वो बढ़ जाएंगे ना साइज में, but C will not change. ठीक है, feet तो बढ़ेंगे ना. When the mother or and her cousins they would grow in age, their feet would also grow. वो भी बढ़ेंगे, पैरों का साइज भी बढ़ेगा. ठीक है, तो इसलिए वो टेम्पररी हैं. And otherwise this term transient feet, it does not refer to feet alone, it is a part which is referring to the whole. Terribly transient feats. So now when a part we will discuss poetic devices also after we complete this poem. Okay, we have alliteration here, we have synecdoche here, we have so many other poetic devices. We will discuss all of them after completing this poem. So I hope you followed the first stanza. आ गया सबको समझ? All of you here online students, have you followed this?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then tell me where had the girls gone and when? And online students, no, online students will only type their answers. They will not speak. Just type your answers. You know how to type in the chat box? पता है आपको? So type your answers.
Can you repeat your question?
The question is, where had the girls gone and why? Yes, so you know how to type. So type the answer, Arzu and Rohit and others also. Just type the answer. Yes, offline students. Where had they gone and why? And when?
They have gone for a sea holiday when the poet mother was 12 years old.
Yes, sit down. They had gone for a sea holiday, and online students, I'm waiting for your answers. When had they gone for that sea holiday? When? Yes, when the author's mother was 12 years old. Yes. So why were the two cousins holding on to the poet's mother's hand? We know it because she was the eldest one, and for a sense of, for getting a sense of direction and for a sense of security, they held on to her hands. And what feelings are aroused in these lines? What are the feelings when you see a photograph and that triggers off your past memories? What are the feelings that come to your mind? Feeling of nostalgia, yes. Feeling of togetherness, feeling of love, bonding, and if you look at such kind of a photograph, it revives all the innocent pleasures of your childhood. Okay. Next is some 20-30 years or so later, she would laugh at the snapshot. Who would laugh at the snapshot?
Poet mother.
The poet's mother. She would laugh at the snapshot and she would say, see, Betty and Dolly, she would say, and look how they dressed for the beach. So she would find it very funny. The way 30 years later, she'd laugh at the snapshot. See, Betty and Dolly. Who are Betty and Dolly? The cousin sisters. They were the cousin sisters of the cousins of the poetess mother. And she would say, look how they dressed us for the beach. Who are they here? No, how they dressed us for the beach. Who are they? They are not the cousins, the parents. The parents, the elders, and fashions keep on changing. When your parents, they would look at their photograph of their childhood, they would find the kind of dresses that they used to wear or the parents made them wear, they would find them very funny. So this is what she also felt. See, look how they dressed us for the beach. Look how the parents made us wear such kind of clothes. The sea holiday was her past. This is a very, very important line, students. Underline it. The sea holiday was her past. Mine is her laughter. What do you mean by this? What does she say? And what is the meaning of this? The sea holiday, if you look at the second last stanza, second last line. The sea holiday was her past. Mine is her laughter. Yes, Mehak Deep. How?
Because she is remembering her mother.
Yes, because she's remembering her mother who is no more. Yes. So the sea holiday was a past. Why was it past for her mother? Sea holiday was her past. Kiska past? Mother's past. And why was it her past? Because now, because it was because now that time is not going to come back. वो पास्ट क्यों है? क्योंकि वो टाइम वापस नहीं आएगा, क्योंकि वो फोटोग्राफ कब खींची गई थी? व्हेन द मदर वाज 12 years old. ठीक है, अब वो टाइम नहीं आएगा. सो दैट इज व्हाई इट इज हर पास्ट एंड माइन इज हर लाफ्टर. और मेरे लिए पास्ट क्या है? द लाफ्टर ऑफ माई मदर. यू नो द बिकॉज एंड व्हाई इज इट past for me? Because my mother is no more with me. Both ride, again this line is again very very important, both ride with the labored ease of loss. Now we have various poetic devices used in this line, and this line just means that rye means some kind of a distortion, some kind of a change, something, you know, which has changed over a period of time. For example, the sea holiday is no more there, the mother is laughter is no more. Both rye with the labored ease of loss. Now both these things have taken place in the life of the poet's mother and the poet, and you know, they have to accept this thing however difficult it might appear to be. And that is why she says labored ease. Everything, you know, death is the ultimate reality, and everything that happens you have to accept it, even if you might find it difficult to accept things in life. That is why she says labored ease. These are two contradictory things which are put together. And when you have two contradictory things put together, expressing this, representing the same feeling, that and the same thing is loss here. Labored ease of loss. Labored ease is used for loss. Loss of her mother's childhood for the mother, and loss of the mother for the poet. Okay, so labored ease, these are two contradictory, two opposite expressions used for this, representing the same feeling, that is loss. And this poetic device is known as oxymoron. Oxymoron. ठीक है, ये मैं बोर्ड पे लिखूंगी, आपको आप भी कॉपी कर लेना. ठीक है, while after I stop sharing, then I'll write all the poetic devices on the board. Oxymoron मैंने आपको बताया है. देखो, लेबर का मतलब है जब आप बहुत हार्ड वर्क करते हो. ईज का मतलब है कोई भी चीज जो बहुत आसानी से कर लेते हो. तो दोनों वर्ड्स लेबर एंड ईज व्हेन दे आर पुट टुगेदर दे रिप्रेजेंट ऑक्सीमोरॉन. ठीक है, दो बिल्कुल ऑपोजिट वर्ड्स, इनके बिल्कुल ऑपोजिट मीनिंग है, कॉन्ट्राडिक्टरी वर्ड्स हैं, उनको हम एक साथ यूज कर रहे हैं, तो पोएटिक डिवाइस क्या होता है? ऑक्सीमोरॉन. समझ में आ गया आपको? ठीक है. नाउ शी इज बीन डेड, वी वो डू दिस एक्सप्रेशन अगेन व्हेन वी विल डिस्कस द पोएटिक डिवाइसेस. वो भी मैंने अभी यहाँ पे शेयर भी करना है, मैं बताऊंगी आपको. नाउ शी इज बीन डेड नियरली एज मेनी इयर्स एज दैट गर्ल लिव. हु इज बीन डेड? Online students, who's been dead?
Poet mother, ma'am, mother.
Yes, poet's mother. And now she's been dead nearly as many years. How many years ago she died?
12
12
years.
years ago. 12. Nearly as, how do you know that? Nearly as many years as that girl lived. That girl in the photograph was how old? 12 years. Okay? So, and it's been now 12 years since the mother has died. And of this circumstance, which circumstance is she talking about here? The death of the mother. She says, and of this circumstance, there is nothing to say at all. It's silence, silences. She says, I don't have any words to express my grief. The pain that I am feeling for the loss of my mother, I can't express it in words. It has created so much of emptiness in my life. It has created a vacuum in my life. It has created a big void in my life. And I cannot express this feeling in any words. I cannot find any words to express it. The silence of this situation, it has silenced me. It has made me speechless. Got it? आ गया समझिए आपको? ऑनलाइन स्टूडेंट्स आ गए?
Yes, ma'am.
Silences is
Yes.
again, you know, this is again a paradox. We would discuss it again in detail. It's silence. The silence of it's here means refers to that situation. You know, when you're talking about a situation, and this is again a paradox. And how is it a paradox? Because silence refers to what? The act of being quiet. And how can silence something? So it's a paradox. So we will discuss this poetic device also. I am going to discuss them in detail. But let me ask a few questions from you to have an idea of whether you have followed the poem or not. Okay, of the last two stanzas, because first stanza we've already discussed. So what do you mean by this? Who are Betty and Dolly? You know that. the cousins, the mother's cousins who had accompanied her for the sea holiday. And how did the mother respond whenever she would look at the photograph? Whenever she looked at the photograph, how did she respond? Yes, she would remember it, she would reminisce it, and she would feel, very, and she would, yes, nostalgic, and all the past memories were triggered off. Because the photograph revived all those past memories. What do you mean by the sea holiday was her past? पता है ये तो आपको? Whose past? Mother's past. ठीक है? And then what do you mean by last answer? Which circumstance is referred to here? Which circumstance are we talking about? Online students, which circumstance? Last answer, third last line. Which circumstance?
The mother's death.
The mother's death. Okay, so it's silences the last line, which is very, very important. Whenever she would think of her mother's death, that thought it would rob her of all her words. She would not find any words to express her sorrow, pain, and grief. Okay, got it? So let us discuss some important things related to this poem. First is the poetic devices that are used. Alliteration. What is alliteration? You know what alliteration is? सबको पता है online students? You know alliteration?
And repetition of the same letters.
Repetition of the same sound. Repetition of the same sound in the initial, when you find it in the initial letters of consecutive words. 2-3 words हैं इकट्ठे place किए हुए हैं, उनका पहला letter, पहला sound same हो, उसको क्या बोलते हैं? Alliteration. ठीक है, आपने 10th में भी किया हुआ ना ये alliteration. So can you find out various examples of alliteration? Stood still to smile, yes. Terribly transient. And terribly transient, stood still to smile, and even silences, SS. Terribly transient में TT है. You will underline the letter TT. जब आप alliteration लिखोगे, you will underline TT, and then silences में SS. ठीक है? And then we have allusion.
Stood still also, ma'am.
Stood still also. Yes. So there are various poetic devices. Stood. Yes, we have stood still to smile. ये इकट्ठा है बेटा. Stood still to smile. ठीक है? And what is oxymoron? Two contradictory ideas, they are joined together to create an effect. And the example here is labored ease. Okay, labored means what? With a lot of hard work and difficulty.
Hard work.
And ease means something which you do very easily, very comfortably. Okay, so both are opposite in meanings, but both are placed together. They are clubbed together. So therefore, the poetic device is oxymoron. Okay, alliteration we have done, oxymoron we have done, and we have another poetic device, that is allusion. Allusion is a reference or a mention of something either directly or by implication. When you refer to something either directly or you just imply that thing. An example, I'll just repeat it. An example is, here example of allusion is cardboard, because here it refers to the photograph. We are not referring to either directly or when you are implying to something. Okay, referring to something, make a mention of something either directly or by implication. That is allusion. Okay? And we have another poetic device, transferred epithet, but that I would explain tomorrow. We would discuss some important points are still left to be discussed. Okay? That we would discuss tomorrow, since we have only 5 minutes left for this period to get over. I want you people to do, what I want you to do is, at home, please go through this poem so that we can discuss various things that are left. We have done it, but there are certain things which need to be discussed in detail. For example, the last line, then both ride with the labored ease of loss and terribly transient feet. There are certain poetic devices related to these. We will discuss them all tomorrow along with the question answers. Got it? Online students, have you followed? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
So we would discuss
Yes,
them
ma'am.
tomorrow, but for today, you need to speak up for your attendance parts, roll number wise. Okay. Have you all followed this poem?